The courtroom falls silent as Miranda Whitaker rises to her feet, eyes blazing, voice shaking with betrayal. "You sold our baby?" Gasps ripple through the gallery. Across from her, her ex-husband Jonathan tightens his Armani tie, calm, composed, and completely unrepentant. The judge slams the gavel, but nothing can silence what's about to be revealed. A secret contract, a fake nursery, and a $5 million deal to sell their unborn daughter like property. If you think love and betrayal can't share the same bed, think again. The Whitaker estate sprawled across 3 manicured acres in the most exclusive neighborhood of Westlake Hills. Inside, Miranda Whitaker stood in their marble-floored kitchen, staring at the pregnancy test in her trembling hands. 2 pink lines, clear as day. After 18 months of trying, she and Jonathan had visited 3 fertility specialists. Each had delivered the same verdict. Miranda's chances of natural conception were less than 5% due to endometriosis discovered in her late 20s. They had been on the waiting list for IVF, but the procedure hadn't even started yet. A miracle. That's what this was. Miranda sank onto one of the kitchen island's sleek bar stools, her mind racing. How would Jonathan react? They'd talked about children, of course. He'd always said he wanted a family someday, but his focus had been laser-sharp on growing Whitaker Tech, his cloud security company that had recently landed several government contracts. Their life together had fallen into a comfortable pattern. Jonathan worked 12-hour days while Miranda had reluctantly stepped back from her nonprofit career at his insistence. "You don't need to work," he'd told her. "Your job stressed you out too much. Besides, we're trying to start a family." The sound of the front door opening pulled Miranda from her thoughts. Jonathan was home early, something that almost never happened. She tucked the pregnancy test into her pocket, suddenly nervous. "Miranda?" his voice echoed. "In the kitchen," she called back, smoothing her sweater and tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. Jonathan appeared in the doorway. "You're home early," Miranda said. The Stevens meeting wrapped up ahead of schedule. He loosened his tie and crossed to the refrigerator. "How was your day?" "I have some news," she said. She pulled the test from her pocket and held it out to him. Jonathan froze, his eyes fixed on the pregnancy test, then flicked up to her face. For a moment, just a flicker, something unreadable crossed his features. Then his expression transformed into a brilliant smile. "Are you serious?" he asked. Miranda nodded. "I can hardly believe it myself." "This is incredible," he said. "The doctors said it was nearly impossible." "I know." Miranda wiped her eyes. "A miracle baby." Jonathan placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "Our miracle baby. We should celebrate. I'll call Henri's and get us a table for tonight." "Are you sure? I know you have that investor call at 8. "It can wait," Jonathan interrupted. "This is more important." The next few weeks passed in a blur of doctor's appointments and planning. Jonathan insisted on the most exclusive obstetrician in the city, Dr. Victoria Chambers, who typically had a 2-year waiting list but somehow had an opening for the wife of Jonathan Whitaker. "I want nothing but the best for you and our baby," Jonathan said. At 8 weeks, they saw their baby for the first time, a tiny fluttering heartbeat on the ultrasound screen that brought tears to Miranda's eyes. Jonathan recorded the entire appointment on his phone, asking Dr. Chambers detailed questions about development milestones and genetic testing options. "Mr. Whitaker is certainly thorough," Dr. Chambers commented. "Most fathers don't ask about amino acid sequencing and genetic marker testing at the first ultrasound." Miranda smiled. "He's excited. We both are. This pregnancy is something we didn't think would happen naturally." Dr. Chambers patted her hand. "Well, you're in good hands here, and everything looks perfect so far." As the pregnancy progressed, Jonathan's attentiveness only increased. He installed a state-of-the-art air purification system throughout the house. He hired a nutritionist to plan and prepare all of Miranda's meals. He even converted one of their spare bedrooms into a prenatal relaxation space, complete with a zero-gravity lounger and ambient sound system. "Jonathan, this is too much," Miranda protested. "I'm pregnant, not made of glass." "Nothing is too much," he insisted. "Stress reduction is crucial for fetal development. I've been researching extensively. We're having a girl," Dr. Chambers announced during their 20-week anatomy scan. Jonathan's hand tightened around hers. "You're certain?" he asked the doctor. 100%, Dr. Chambers replied. That evening, Jonathan surprised Miranda with a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate platinum necklace with a pink diamond pendant. "For our daughter," he said, fastening it around her neck. "The first of many gifts." "It's beautiful, Jonathan. I'm thinking we should name her Lily," he suggested. "It was my grandmother's name. She left me my first investment capital." "Lily," Miranda repeated, testing the name. "I like it. Lily Whitaker." Jonathan smiled. "Perfect. I've already started the paperwork for her trust fund." Miranda blinked in surprise. "Already?" She won't need college funds for another 18 years. It's never too early to secure her future, Jonathan replied. In fact, I've set up a special account just for her. $2 million transferred in already. For her education, healthcare, whatever she needs. $2 million? Miranda gasped. Jonathan, that's excessive. Is it? I thought you'd be pleased that I'm taking our daughter's future so seriously. Of course I am. It's incredibly generous. I'm just surprised, that's all. You focus on growing our healthy baby girl. Let me handle the financial planning. It's what I do best, after all. Later that night, Miranda woke to an empty bed. Glancing at the clock, 2:17 a.m., she frowned and slipped on her robe. Jonathan often worked late, but he usually came to bed eventually. She padded down the hallway toward his home office, slowing as she heard his voice. He was on the phone, his tone hushed but intense. The timeline is perfect, he was saying. Once the baby arrives, everything transfers automatically. The paperwork is ironclad. Miranda froze, her hand on the wall. What paperwork? What timeline? The medical documentation is comprehensive, Jonathan continued. Yes, of course I've been recording everything. I'm not an amateur. The prenatal tests confirm perfect health, he said. Premium quality, as promised. Premium quality? Miranda's mind raced. Was he talking about their baby like some kind of product? The mother remains unaware. Let's keep it that way. The mother. Not my wife or Miranda. The mother. Jonathan's chair creaked. I need to go. We'll proceed as planned. Yes, I understand the value of the asset. Trust me, no one appreciates it more than I do. Miranda backed away silently, her heart hammering. She returned to bed and lay awake, staring at the ceiling until Jonathan eventually slipped in beside her around 3. The next morning, over breakfast, she casually mentioned, "You were up late last night." Jonathan didn't look up from his tablet. Had to finalize some details for the Singapore expansion. I thought I heard you on the phone. Did you need something? You should have texted me. No, I just wondered who you were talking to so late. My international team, he replied easily. Time differences make scheduling calls challenging. You shouldn't be wandering around at night. What if you had fallen? No more midnight wandering, promise me. She nodded, forcing a smile. Promise. As the weeks passed, Miranda noticed more peculiarities in Jonathan's behavior. He insisted on attending every doctor's appointment, recording everything. He requested additional tests that even Dr. Chambers found excessive. He started taking weekly photos of Miranda's growing belly against a measurement chart, documenting the exact growth with clinical precision. When Miranda's sister Kate came to visit from Portland, she noticed the change immediately. What's with the pregnancy paparazzi? Kate asked after Jonathan had insisted on photographing Miranda from multiple angles before leaving for work. He's acting like he's documenting a science experiment, not expecting a baby. Miranda sighed. He's just being thorough. You know how Jonathan is with details. Kate frowned. There's thoroughness, and then there's whatever this is. Has he always been this? Controlling? He's not controlling, Miranda protested. He's involved. Involved would be painting the nursery and reading What to Expect. This feels different. You don't seem as happy as you should be, Mira. What's going on? Miranda hesitated. She hadn't told anyone about the late-night phone call or her growing concerns. It's nothing, she said finally. Just pregnancy hormones making me emotional. Kate didn't look convinced but dropped the subject. That evening, Jonathan announced he'd hired a doula to move in for the final 6 weeks of the pregnancy. Her name is Vanessa Peters, he explained over dinner. She's worked with celebrities and executives. She'll monitor your diet, exercise, sleep, everything to ensure optimal conditions. I don't need a live-in babysitter, Miranda argued. She's not a babysitter. She's a professional pregnancy manager. Pregnancy manager? I'm not a project that needs managing. This isn't up for debate. Vanessa starts next week. I've already signed the contract. Without discussing it with me first? This is my body, Jonathan. My pregnancy. Our baby. And I'm investing in her future by ensuring the best prenatal care money can buy. Investing. There was that word again. As if their daughter was a financial opportunity rather than a child. I've scheduled a meeting with our attorney tomorrow, Jonathan continued, his tone softening slightly. We need to update our wills and finalize the trust documentation before Lily arrives. Miranda nodded numbly, too exhausted to argue further. Later, as she prepared for bed, she noticed a folder on Jonathan's nightstand labeled Lily Whitaker, Asset Protection. Asset Protection. Another strange choice of words. She reached for the folder, but Jonathan emerged from the bathroom at that moment. Looking for something? He asked mildly, though his eyes were watchful. Just tidying up, Miranda replied. What's in the folder? Trust documents, insurance policies. Nothing for you to worry about. He slipped the folder into his briefcase. Financial matters are tedious. The next day, Miranda sat across from Philip Garrett, the Whitaker family attorney, in his plush downtown office. Jonathan had insisted she sign an updated prenuptial agreement when they married, and now he wanted additional documentation related to the baby. "This is fairly straightforward," Philip explained, sliding a document across the polished table. "It's an amendment to your prenuptial agreement, accounting for your daughter's trust and inheritance structures." Miranda scanned the document, her legal knowledge limited but sufficient to recognize that something was off. "This says that in the event of divorce, Jonathan retains full decision-making authority regarding Lily's trust fund until she's 30, Miranda noted, frowning. "And this clause about reproductive assets, what does that mean exactly?" Philip glanced at Jonathan, who smiled reassuringly at Miranda. "Standard legal terminology," Jonathan explained. "It protects Lily's genetic information and medical records, which are increasingly valuable in today's world. And this section about transfer of parental rights," she pressed. "Just legalese for custody arrangements," Jonathan interjected before Philip could answer. "It ensures that if something happens to either of us, the other has full custody." Miranda looked to Philip for confirmation. The attorney's expression remained professionally blank, but he wouldn't quite meet her eyes. "I'd like to have my own attorney review this," Miranda said finally. "We don't need a second opinion. Philip has handled my legal affairs for a decade." "Exactly," Miranda countered. "He's your attorney, not mine." "Mrs. Whitaker does have the right to independent counsel," Philip noted quietly. "Fine, but we need this signed by the end of the week. The trust funding is time-sensitive for tax purposes." Miranda nodded, taking the document. As she stood to leave, the room spun slightly, and she grasped the edge of the table. "Are you all right?" Jonathan was immediately at her side. "Just a little dizzy," Miranda assured him. "I'll have my assistant bring the car around," Jonathan said. "You should rest. I'll have the documents sent to whatever attorney you choose." That evening, Miranda called Kate while Jonathan was in his study. "I need a favor," she said quietly. "Can you recommend a family law attorney in Austin?" "What's going on?" Kate's voice sharpened with concern. "Just some paperwork for the baby's trust fund." "Are you sure that's all it is?" Miranda hesitated. "I don't know," she finally admitted. "I have a law school friend in Austin, Rebecca Chen. She specializes in family law and high-asset divorces. I'll text you her number." "I'm not planning to divorce him." "I didn't say you were, but Rebecca knows how to read between the lines of fancy legal documents. Call her." After they hung up, Miranda sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her reflection in the vanity mirror. The door to the bedroom opened, and Jonathan entered, loosening his tie. "Feeling better?" he asked. Miranda nodded. "Much, thank you." "Good, because I have a surprise for you." He sat beside her on the bed, taking her hands in his. "I've arranged for us to spend the last month before your due date at the lake house. Fresh air, peace and quiet, just what you and Lily need." "What about my 30-week checkup with Dr. Chambers?" Miranda asked. "Already taken care of. Dr. Winters near the lake house will oversee your care for those final weeks. He's excellent, specializes in high-risk pregnancies." Miranda frowned. "My pregnancy isn't high risk. It's just a precaution," Jonathan assured her. "The lake house is remote. I want a specialist nearby just in case." It sounded reasonable. "I'll miss my baby shower. Kate and my friends have been planning it for weeks. We can reschedule for after Lily arrives," Jonathan suggested. "A welcome party instead." Miranda started to protest but stopped when she saw the determination in Jonathan's eyes. This wasn't a suggestion. It was a decision already made. "When would we leave?" she asked. "Next week," Jonathan replied. The next morning, Miranda called Rebecca Chen from the privacy of her car in the supermarket parking lot. "Kate Voss referred to me," she explained after introducing herself. "I need someone to review some documents related to my pregnancy and my husband's arrangements." "Arrangements. I have an opening this afternoon at 3, Rebecca replied. "Kate mentioned you're concerned about some trust documents," Rebecca said once they were settled in her cozy office. Miranda nodded. "It's supposed to be a simple amendment to our prenup accounting for our daughter's trust fund, but something feels off about it." "Mrs. Whitaker." "Miranda, please." "Miranda, this is not a standard trust amendment." Rebecca tapped the papers. "This document essentially grants your husband complete control over your child, her medical decisions, and any biological assets derived from her." "Biological assets?" Miranda echoed. "It could refer to genetic material, stem cells from cord blood, even future reproductive capacity." Rebecca leaned forward. "More concerning is this clause about transfer of parental interests. This isn't about custody in case of divorce or death. This allows your husband to transfer parental rights to third parties without your consent." Miranda's blood ran cold. "Transfer to whom?" "That's not specified. But combined with these sections about asset valuation and recovery of investment, it paints a disturbing picture. Has your husband ever discussed surrogacy or adoption arrangements with you?" "No, never," This is our biological child. I'm 7 months pregnant. Rebecca nodded slowly. Miranda, I don't want to alarm you, but these documents read like a contract preparing your child for placement with another family. That's impossible, Miranda whispered. Jonathan would never. He's excited about the baby. He's spending a fortune on her care, her future, on her health and development, Rebecca corrected gently. Miranda shook her head. There must be some mistake. I hope there is, Rebecca said, but I would strongly advise against signing anything until we clarify exactly what your husband's intentions are. She pulled a business card from her desk drawer. This is Detective Alicia Morales. She specializes in family crimes and human trafficking. If you feel unsafe or discover anything concrete, call her immediately. I'm probably overreacting, she said weakly. Jonathan can be controlling, but he couldn't. I hope you're right, but please promise me you'll be careful, and call me anytime, day or night, if you need help. Miranda nodded, tucking the business card into her purse beside the prenatal vitamins and ultrasound photos. Could Jonathan really be planning to sell their baby? It seemed impossible, monstrous. Yet fear gnawed at her as she pulled into their driveway. That evening, as they ate dinner, Miranda watched Jonathan with new eyes. Has she ever really known this man? You're quiet tonight, Jonathan observed, refilling his wine glass. Everything all right? Miranda forced a smile. Just tired. The baby was active today. Jonathan's eyes flickered to her stomach. She's strong. That's good. I was thinking, Miranda ventured carefully, maybe we should reconsider the lake house plan. I'd really like to stay near Dr. Chambers for the birth. We've already discussed this. Dr. Winters is excellent, but what if there are complications? The lake house is so isolated, precisely why I've arranged for Vanessa to stay with us, along with a private nurse for the final 2 weeks. Jonathan set down his glass. Did you review those documents? Jonathan asked. Philip needs them signed by Friday. I haven't had a chance yet, Miranda lied. Jonathan nodded. Don't delay too long. The trust funding is time-sensitive. That night, after Jonathan had fallen asleep, Miranda slipped out of bed and padded silently to his home office. Inside, Jonathan's office was meticulously organized as always. His desk was clear except for his laptop and a framed photo of them from their wedding day. Miranda tried the laptop, but it was password protected, as expected. She moved to the filing cabinet, carefully sliding open the top drawer. Inside were neatly labeled folders: taxes, investments, property, insurance. Nothing suspicious. The second drawer contained business contracts and company documents. Still nothing unusual. The third drawer was locked. Miranda hesitated. Breaking into a locked drawer crossed a line, but Rebecca's warnings echoed in her mind. If Jonathan was planning something sinister, she needed to know. She remembered his habit of keeping spare keys taped under drawer bottoms, a trick he'd shown her once when she'd locked herself out of her desk. She felt underneath the second drawer and found a small key. The third drawer opened smoothly, revealing a single thick folder labeled Project Lily. Miranda's hands trembled as she lifted it out. Inside were documents that confirmed her worst fears. A contract with an organization called Elite Genetic Solutions, describing the procurement and placement of premium genetic assets. Medical specifications listing desired traits, health parameters, and delivery timelines. A payment schedule totaling $5 million, with the bulk to be transferred upon successful delivery and placement. Email correspondence between Jonathan and someone named Dr. Mercer discussing the asset and the host mother, her. Most damning of all, profiles of 3 wealthy couples seeking to acquire a child with specific genetic traits that matched Miranda and Jonathan perfectly. Miranda covered her mouth to stifle a sob. Jonathan hadn't created a trust fund for their daughter. He had been paid, or would be paid, to deliver their baby to the highest bidder among these couples. The sound of a floorboard creaking in the hallway sent panic shooting through her. Miranda quickly replaced the folder, closed the drawer, and moved toward the bookshelf, pretending to browse. The office door opened, and Jonathan stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "What are you doing in here?" he asked. "Couldn't sleep," Miranda replied. "I was looking for something to read." Jonathan's eyes scanned the room. "In the dark? I didn't want to turn on the bright lights. I didn't want to wake you." She pulled a book from the shelf. "Found what I needed. Sorry if I disturbed you." She moved to pass him. "Is everything all right, Miranda? You've been distracted lately." Miranda met his gaze. "Just pregnancy brain. Nothing to worry about. Get some rest. We have the final ultrasound tomorrow." Miranda nodded and returned to their bedroom, her mind racing. She needed to escape, to protect herself and her baby, but she had to be careful. The next morning unfolded with artificial normalcy. Miranda prepared breakfast while Jonathan read financial news on his tablet. The silence between them stretched thin like overwound piano wire. She stirred her decaf coffee mechanically, mind racing with escape scenarios while maintaining her facade of pregnant contentment. "I've moved up our departure for the lake house," Jonathan announced. "We'll leave Saturday instead of next week." "This Saturday? That's in 3 days." The contractor finished the nursery renovations ahead of schedule. His tone was casual, but his eyes, when they met hers, were calculating. "Is that a problem?" "No, just surprised. I'll need to pack sooner than expected." "No need," Jonathan replied. "I've asked Margot to handle the packing." "Margot was their housekeeper. That's thoughtful of you." Jonathan nodded, returning to his tablet. "Dr. Chambers moved your appointment to this afternoon. 2 o'clock. She had a cancellation?" Miranda asked. "I explained our change in plans. She rearranged her schedule. I'll pick you up at 1:30. Be ready." After he left for work, Miranda waited 15 minutes to ensure he was truly gone before retrieving her phone. She called Kate first. "I need help," she whispered, despite being alone in the house. "I think Jonathan is planning to sell our baby." "What?" Kate's voice rose in shock. "Insane, I know. But I found documents, Kate. Contracts with profiles of potential buyers. He's arranged everything. Isolated location for delivery, specialized medical staff, transfer protocols." A heavy silence followed. "Tell me you're somewhere safe right now." "I'm at home, but he's at work. He's moving us to the lake house on Saturday, 3 days from now. You need to leave. Today. Now. Pack a bag and come to Portland. I can't just disappear. He has resources, connections. He'd find me. And I need evidence, proof of what he's planning. Otherwise, it's just the crazy accusations of a hormonal pregnant woman against a respected businessman." "What about the documents you found?" "In his locked filing cabinet, in his locked office. I need copies, but I have to be careful." "What about the attorney Rebecca? Could she help?" "Maybe," Miranda said. "I'm seeing Dr. Chambers this afternoon. Jonathan will be there, but maybe I can find a way to tell her what's happening." "Be careful, Mira," Kate pleaded. "I have to go. Margot will be here soon to help me pack." After hanging up, Miranda called Rebecca Chen's office, but was told the attorney was in court all day. She left an urgent message asking for a call back, then deleted the call from her phone's history. Next, she located Detective Alicia Morales' card and stared at it, weighing her options. Without hard evidence, would the police take her seriously? Would they move quickly enough? She tucked the card back into her wallet. Not yet, but soon. At precisely 1:30, Jonathan's Tesla pulled into the driveway. Miranda had spent the morning pretending to help Margot pack while actually preparing a small go bag that she hid in the back of her closet. Just essentials: identification, prenatal vitamins, a change of clothes, and the $500 emergency cash. "Ready?" Jonathan asked. "As I'll ever be," Miranda replied. At the clinic, Dr. Chambers greeted them warmly. "Moving up your care transfer, I understand? The lake house must be lovely." "It's peaceful," Miranda said. "Dr. Winters is excellent," Jonathan interjected smoothly. "His specialization in high-risk deliveries is reassuring." Dr. Chambers raised an eyebrow. "Miranda's pregnancy has been textbook perfect. I wouldn't classify it as high risk. Prevention is better than cure," Jonathan replied. During the ultrasound, Miranda searched for a way to communicate with Dr. Chambers alone, but Jonathan remained glued to her side, recording everything on his phone as usual. "I need to use the restroom," Miranda said, as Dr. Chambers finished her measurements. "Of course," the doctor replied. "I'll wait here," Jonathan said, his attention on the ultrasound screen where their daughter's profile was clearly visible. In the bathroom, Miranda scribbled a hasty note on a paper towel. "Need help. Husband planning to sell baby. Call Detective Morals," followed by the detective's number. She folded it into a tiny square and held it in her palm. Back in the exam room, she waited for an opportunity. It came when Dr. Chambers asked her to change back into her clothes. "Jonathan, would you mind getting the car? These elevators take forever, and my feet are killing me," Miranda asked. Jonathan nodded. "I'll pull around in front." The moment he left, Miranda thrust the note into Dr. Chambers' hand. "Please," she whispered. "It's not paranoia. He's really planning this." Dr. Chambers' professional composure slipped for just a moment, her eyes widening as she read the note. "Are you safe right now?" she asked softly. "For now. But he's taking me to an isolated location in 3 days. Please, call the detective. Tell her what's happening." Dr. Chambers nodded, tucking the note into her pocket just as the door opened and Jonathan returned. "The car's out front," he announced. "Perfect timing," Dr. Chambers said, her professional demeanor fully restored. "I was just telling Miranda that everything looks excellent. Lily is right on track for her gestational age." Jonathan smiled, but his eyes were watchful as they moved between the two women. Had he noticed something? As they drove home, Jonathan's phone rang through the car's Bluetooth system. "Whitaker," he answered. "Mr. Whitaker, this is Dr. Mercer. The voice sent a chill down Miranda's spine, the doctor from the emails. Jonathan's eyes flicked to Miranda. I'm in the car with my wife. Can I call you back? Just confirming our arrangements for next week. The team will be ready as discussed. Excellent. We'll speak later. Who's Dr. Mercer? Miranda asked. A specialist consultant for one of our medical technology investments, Jonathan replied smoothly. At home, Miranda found Margot had nearly finished packing her clothes. The suitcases stood ready in their bedroom, a visual reminder of how little time she had left. Thank you, Margot, she said. After the housekeeper left, Miranda checked her hidden go-bag. Still undisturbed. Good. She spent the evening playing the role of excited mother-to-be, discussing nursery colors and baby names as if their daughter would actually come home to this house. All the while, her mind raced, waiting for Dr. Chambers to make contact with Detective Morales, praying for intervention before Saturday. That night, Miranda woke to the sound of hushed voices. The bedside clock read 2:17 a.m. Jonathan's side of the bed was empty again. She crept to the hallway, staying in the shadows. Jonathan was in the living room, pacing as he spoke on the phone. The obstetrician is a potential complication, he was saying. She seemed suspicious today. Yes, I'm aware of the timeline. No, the mother doesn't suspect anything. Miranda's heart pounded so loudly she feared he might hear it. Dr. Chambers had obviously made the call to Detective Morales, and Jonathan had somehow found out. We may need to accelerate, Jonathan continued. The lake house is ready. The medical team can be there by tomorrow night. I understand the contracts aren't finalized, but the Brodeurs are committed, $5 million as agreed. The Brodeurs, one of the couples from the profile she'd found, French billionaires who couldn't have children of their own. I'll handle my wife. She trusts me implicitly. A cold laugh. That's never been a problem. Miranda retreated silently to the bedroom, her mind racing. Tomorrow night, not Saturday. Jonathan was moving up the timeline. She had to leave now, tonight. Waiting until Jonathan returned to bed and his breathing deepened into sleep, Miranda slipped out from under the covers. She dressed silently in the bathroom, retrieved her go-bag from the closet, and took one last look at the man she had once loved, now revealed as a monster willing to sell their child. She crept down the stairs, avoiding the third step that always creaked, and made her way to the kitchen. Her purse hung on the hook by the garage door, her car keys inside. The house was silent as she punched in the alarm code and unlocked the door to the garage. Almost there, almost free. Going somewhere? Miranda froze, her hand on the doorknob. Jonathan stood at the bottom of the stairs, his expression calm, but his eyes cold as winter. I couldn't sleep, she stammered. Thought I'd go for a drive. At 3 in the morning? 7 months pregnant? With a packed bag? It's not what you think. Isn't it? I thought we were happy, Miranda. I thought we wanted the same things. We did, until I found out what you're really planning. And what am I planning exactly? You're going to sell our baby, Miranda said, the words tasting like poison. To the Brodeurs, for $5 million. You've been in my office, in my files. You're not denying it. Why would I? It's a business transaction, a service provided to people who desperately want what we can give them. He took another step closer. Do you know how rare it is to find genetically perfect matches? How valuable a healthy, biologically superior infant is to the right buyers? She's our daughter, not a product. She's an asset, Miranda, one that can set us up for life. His voice softened. Think about it. We're young. We can have more children. But this opportunity, you're insane, Miranda whispered. I prefer pragmatic. Now, let's go back upstairs and forget this unpleasantness. We leave for the lake house tomorrow. I'm not going anywhere with you. Don't be foolish, Jonathan warned. Where would you go? To your sister in Portland? I'd find you before you cross the state line. To the police? What evidence do you have besides pregnancy-induced paranoia? All my arrangements are perfectly legal on paper. Dr. Chambers knows. She contacted Detective Morales. Jonathan smiled thinly. Dr. Chambers called me an hour ago, concerned about your mental state. Apparently, you're suffering from prenatal anxiety and paranoid delusions. She suggested immediate psychiatric evaluation. Miranda's blood ran cold. You're lying. Am I? Call her. She's very worried about you. It couldn't be true. Dr. Chambers had seemed genuinely concerned. Unless, what did you do to her? Nothing drastic. Just reminded her who funded the new wing of her medical complex last year, and that her malpractice insurance wouldn't cover a lawsuit from someone with my resources. Jonathan shrugged. Miranda felt the last of her hope crumbling. She had underestimated Jonathan's influence, his ruthlessness. Now, he said, extending his hand, let's go back to bed. You need your rest. Tomorrow is a big day. Instead of taking his hand, Miranda threw her bag at his face and yanked open the door to the garage. She lunged for her car, fumbling with the keys as Jonathan recovered. "Miranda, stop this nonsense," he shouted. She managed to unlock the car and dive into the driver's seat, locking the doors as Jonathan reached the vehicle. He pounded on the window. "Where do you think you're going? You're 7 months pregnant. Be reasonable." Miranda started the engine, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grip the steering wheel. Jonathan moved to block the garage door, but she put the car in reverse, forcing him to jump aside as she backed out. Miranda drove aimlessly at first, her mind racing. Jonathan would report the car stolen. He would tell the police his pregnant wife was having a mental breakdown, that she needed help. They would believe him. The respected tech executive worried about his unstable wife. She needed a place to hide, to think. The answer came to her as she passed a familiar sign, Ridgeview Women's Shelter. Years ago, when she worked at Child First, she had referred clients there, women escaping abusive relationships. The shelter had strict confidentiality protocols and security measures. Men weren't allowed on the premises. Miranda pulled into the shelter's parking lot and cut the engine, her hands still trembling. It was nearly 4 in the morning, but a light shone in the reception area. She approached the door and pressed the intercom button. "Ridgeview Shelter," a tired voice answered. "My name is Miranda. I need help. My husband is planning to sell our baby." A pause, then the door buzzed open. Inside, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair greeted her. "I'm Helen," she said, ushering Miranda to a small office. "Let's get you settled, then you can tell me what's happening." Miranda collapsed into a chair, exhaustion and fear catching up with her. "He'll look for me," she whispered. "He has resources, connections." Helen nodded calmly. "We've handled powerful abusers before. Our location isn't public, we have security protocols, and our residents' identities are protected." She studied Miranda's pregnant belly. "How far along are you?" 30 weeks. The baby's a girl." Tears welled in Miranda's eyes. "He was going to sell her to a wealthy couple. He has doctors, facilities all arranged." If Helen was shocked, she didn't show it. "You're safe here for now. Let's get you to a room so you can rest. Tomorrow, we'll contact the authorities and get you legal protection." Miranda shook her head frantically. "He'll have reported me missing by now. He'll say I'm unstable, delusional, and he has influence with the police. Then we'll need evidence," Helen said firmly. "But that's tomorrow's problem. Right now, you need sleep." The shelter room was small but clean, with a twin bed and a small bathroom. Miranda lay down, not expecting to sleep, but exhaustion claimed her almost immediately. She woke to gentle knocking. Helen entered with a tray of food and a sympathetic smile. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Like I'm living a nightmare," Miranda admitted. "I spoke with our legal advocate this morning," Helen said. "She's on her way. Her name is Zoe, and she specializes in cases involving pregnant women in crisis." "What time is it?" "Just after 10. Your car has been moved to a secure location, and we've logged you into our system under a pseudonym." Helen hesitated. "Your phone?" "I left it at home," Miranda interrupted. "Jonathan could track it." Helen nodded approvingly. "Smart thinking. We have a secure line you can use if you need to make calls." An hour later, Miranda sat across from Zoe Martinez, the shelter's legal advocate. In her mid-30s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, "Helen briefed me on your situation," she began. "I need you to tell me everything, every detail you can remember about your husband's plan." Miranda recounted everything. The documents she'd found, the conversations she'd overheard, the lake house preparations, Dr. Chambers' betrayal. Zoe took meticulous notes, her expression growing grimmer with each revelation. "This is human trafficking," she said finally. "But we need evidence, something concrete." "The documents are in his office in a locked drawer," Miranda explained. "And there are emails on his computer, which we can't access without a warrant," Zoe mused. "What about Detective Morales, the one Dr. Chambers was supposed to contact?" "I know Alicia," Zoe said, brightening slightly. "She's good, one of the few officers who doesn't get intimidated by wealth or status. Let me call her." Zoe stepped out to make the call, returning 20 minutes later with a troubled expression. "Detective Morales never received a call from Dr. Chambers," she reported, "but she's aware of a missing persons report filed this morning by Jonathan Whitaker. According to the report, his pregnant wife disappeared during a manic episode. He's concerned for her safety and the baby's well-being." Miranda closed her eyes. "He's setting me up to look unstable." The good news is, Alicia is skeptical. She's dealt with enough domestic situations to recognize potential manipulation. She's willing to meet with you, unofficially, here at the shelter. Hope flickered faintly. "When?" "This afternoon." "But Miranda," Zoe leaned forward, "we need something concrete." Miranda thought hard, trying to remember anything that might help. "The lake house," she said suddenly. "He's been renovating it, supposedly for the nursery. But what if those renovations were actually preparing it for the baby transfer? There might be medical equipment, documentation." "That's a possibility," Zoe acknowledged. but we can't exactly break in to check. We don't have to. Miranda's mind raced. Jonathan installed a smart home system last year. Cameras, temperature controls, security, all accessible through an app. I have access on my phone, which I left at home, but the account information is in my email. I could log in from a computer here. Zoe looked intrigued. Would he have changed the passwords once you left? Maybe, but he might not have thought of the smart home system specifically. Zoe produced a laptop, and Miranda logged into her email account. To her relief, Jonathan hadn't changed her password yet. She quickly found the Lakeview Smart Home setup confirmation from the previous year and followed the link to the portal. "Please work," she whispered as she entered her credentials. The system logged her in. The dashboard appeared, showing temperature readings, security status, and crucially, live feed options from cameras placed throughout the property. "I'm in," Miranda breathed. She clicked through the camera feeds: living room, kitchen, master bedroom, guest rooms. Nothing unusual. Then she selected nursery. The image that appeared made both women gasp. It wasn't a nursery. It was a medical suite. A hospital-grade delivery bed dominated the center. Medical monitors, an incubator, and what appeared to be surgical equipment lined the walls. A medication cabinet stood in one corner, and a separate area had been set up with what looked like documentation stations. "That's not for a normal birth," Zoe whispered. Miranda clicked to another feed labeled Guest Suite 1. Inside was a luxuriously appointed bedroom that looked more like a high-end hotel than a lake house room. For the buyers, Miranda guessed, the Broders. She navigated to the security logs, which showed recent entries to the property. Over the past week, several different vehicles had accessed the gate, including a medical supply van and what was logged as Dr. Mercer Consulting. "This is it," Zoe said. "This is our evidence. Let me call Detective Morales right now." While Zoe made the call, Miranda continued exploring the system. She discovered saved recordings from the previous day, Jonathan giving a tour to a middle-aged man in a lab coat, presumably Dr. Mercer. The audio was muffled, but phrases like delivery protocol and transfer procedure were clearly audible. Most damning of all, she found recordings of Jonathan speaking with a couple who could only be the Broders, an elegantly dressed man and woman with French accents, discussing their baby's arrival. "Everything is arranged," Jonathan assured them in the recording. "The birth mother believes she's coming here for a peaceful delivery away from the city. She has no idea about our arrangement, and she never will. Once the baby is delivered, you'll have your daughter and be on your private jet back to Paris within hours." "And there will be no legal complications?" the woman asked. "None," Jonathan replied confidently. "The documentation will show a stillbirth. Miranda will be sedated during delivery and told the tragic news when she wakes. By then, you and the baby will be halfway across the Atlantic." Miranda felt physically ill. He had planned to tell her their baby had died while actually handing her to strangers. Detective Alicia Morales arrived an hour later, a tall, no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes and a determined set to her jaw. She viewed the evidence in grim silence, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "This is trafficking, plain and simple," she concluded. "He's planning to take me to the lake house tomorrow," Miranda reminded her. "Once I'm there, that's not going to happen," Detective Morales assured her. "But we need to be strategic. If we simply arrest him now, his legal team will have him out on bail within hours, and the evidence at the lake house might disappear." "What do you suggest?" Zoe asked. "A sting operation," Morales replied. "We need to catch him in the act, preferably with the buyers and medical team present. That means letting him think his plan is proceeding." Miranda's hand moved protectively to her stomach. "You want me to go with him? To the lake house?" "No," Morales said firmly. "We'll make him think you've returned home, remorseful and confused, that you had a hormone-induced panic attack but now you're ready to go to the lake house as planned." "He won't believe that," Miranda protested. "He might, if we set it up properly." Morales leaned forward. "Men like your husband are narcissists at heart. They believe in their ability to control others, especially women. If we play into that belief, make him think his manipulation has worked, he might just take the bait." The plan took shape over the next few hours. Miranda would call Jonathan from the shelter's secure line, claiming she had been confused and frightened, that pregnancy hormones had made her paranoid. She would beg to come home and agree to the lake house plan. Meanwhile, Detective Morales would assemble a team to survey the property and prepare for an intervention once all parties were present. "The key is to get the Broders and Dr. Mercer on site," Morales explained. Miranda nodded. "What if something goes wrong?" "We'll have officers watching your house from the moment you return," Morales assured her, "and we'll have a tracking device on your person." That evening, with Morales and Zoe beside her, Miranda made the call. Jonathan answered on the first ring. "Miranda?" His voice was a perfect blend of relief and concern. "Where are you?" "I'm safe," she said. "I'm sorry, Jonathan. I don't know what came over me. Where are you? He repeated. At a hotel, she lied. I got scared. I had these crazy thoughts about the baby, about you. The doctor said it might be prenatal anxiety. You spoke to a doctor? At the emergency room. I was having panic attacks. Another lie. They said it's not uncommon in the third trimester. A pause. Why didn't you call me? I was embarrassed, Miranda admitted. The things I accused you of, they were horrible, delusional. I know you would never do anything to hurt our baby. Are you ready to come home? Jonathan finally asked. I've been so worried about you and Lily. Yes, Miranda whispered. I want to come home. I'll come get you, Jonathan offered. No, that's not necessary, Miranda said quickly. I have a friend with me. She'll drop me off. Give me an hour? All right, Jonathan agreed after a moment's hesitation. After hanging up, Miranda looked to Detective Morales. Did he believe it? It's hard to say, Morales replied honestly. Men like your husband are expert manipulators. What happens now? Now, we get you prepared. Morales opened a small case she had brought with her. Inside was what looked like a delicate silver necklace. This pendant contains a tracking device and a microphone. It will allow us to monitor your location and hear what's happening around you. Miranda took the necklace. Will he be able to detect it? No, it's the latest technology, designed for undercover operations. Unless he has specialized equipment, he won't know. An hour later, Miranda stood outside her home, the tracking necklace around her neck, and Detective Morales's final instructions echoing in her mind. Don't confront him. Act remorseful and compliant. The front door opened before she could knock. Jonathan stood there, his expression a careful mask of concern. Miranda, he said softly, opening his arms. She stepped into his embrace. I'm sorry, she whispered. It's all right, he soothed. Pregnancy can do strange things to a woman's mind. That night, Miranda lay awake beside Jonathan, her body rigid despite her attempts to appear relaxed. His arm draped possessively over her swollen belly, his breathing deep and even as if he didn't have a care in the world, as if he wasn't planning to steal their child and fake its death. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she forced herself to remain still. Detective Morales and her team were watching the house. The tracking pendant around her neck connected her to safety. All she had to do was play her part until they had enough evidence to arrest everyone involved in this monstrous scheme. Morning arrived after what felt like the longest night of Miranda's life. Jonathan was solicitous, preparing her favorite breakfast and insisting she rest while he loaded the car for their trip to the lake house. I've moved some meetings around, he announced over coffee. We can leave by noon. Dr. Mercer will meet us there this evening to check your vitals. Dr. Mercer? Miranda kept her voice neutral. What about Dr. Winters? I thought he was handling my care at the lake. Dr. Mercer is a colleague of his, Jonathan explained smoothly. Miranda nodded, sipping her tea to hide her expression. Dr. Mercer was the facilitator of Jonathan's baby-selling scheme. I've invited some friends for the weekend as well, Jonathan continued casually. The Brodeurs, Philippe and Elise. They're from Paris on business, and I thought some company might be nice for you. That sounds lovely, Miranda managed. Jonathan smiled. They're very excited to meet you. Philippe is a collector of rare things, and Elise has a particular interest in new life. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about. As Jonathan left to take a call, Miranda slipped into the bathroom and whispered to her tracking pendant, The Brodeurs are coming to the lake house tonight. Dr. Mercer, too. All the players will be there. She flushed the toilet to cover her actions, then rejoined Jonathan in the kitchen. Everything set for our weekend retreat? She asked brightly. Just finalize the details, he confirmed. Why don't you rest while I finish packing the car? The drive to Lake Travis took nearly an hour, winding through increasingly remote countryside until they turned onto a private road marked only with a discreet W on the gatepost. Jonathan parked in the circular drive and came around to help Miranda from the car. Welcome to your sanctuary for the next few weeks, he said. Inside, the house was just as Miranda remembered, sleek, minimalist, cold despite the expensive furnishings. What she hadn't seen before was the new security system. You've upgraded the security, she observed. After your disappearing act, I thought it prudent, Jonathan replied. The system tracks movement throughout the house and grounds. For your safety, of course. Let me show you the nursery, Jonathan suggested, steering her down a hallway. The renovations turned out beautifully. Miranda's heart pounded as they approached the room she had seen on the smart home camera feed. The medical suite disguised as a nursery. What would she see in person? Had he somehow converted it back to a normal nursery since she'd viewed the feed? Jonathan opened the door with a flourish. What do you think? Miranda blinked in confusion. The room before her was a perfectly appointed nursery. Pale yellow walls, a white crib with a mobile hanging above it, a changing table, rocking chair, and stuffed animals arranged on floating shelves. It's beautiful, she stammered. When did you do all this? I had the designers working around the clock, Jonathan said, watching her reaction carefully. After your concerns about being so far from the hospital, I wanted to make sure. Is there another room? She asked casually. For the night nurse you mentioned? Of course. The East Wing has been prepared for staff. Jonathan guided her back to the hallway. You must be tired from the drive. Why don't you rest before our guests arrive? The East Wing. That must be where the actual delivery suite was located. Jonathan was keeping it hidden from her for now, presenting this facade of normalcy. In the master suite, Miranda pretended to nap while Jonathan unpacked their bags. Through slitted eyes, she watched him place her prenatal vitamins on the nightstand, then hesitate before pulling a small pill bottle from his pocket and emptying 2 capsules into his palm. With surgical precision, he opened one of her vitamin capsules, replaced its contents with whatever was in his hand, and carefully resealed it. Miranda's blood ran cold. He was drugging her prenatal vitamins, probably with sedatives to keep her compliant as they neared his planned delivery date. When Jonathan left the room, she quickly retrieved the modified capsule and flushed it down the toilet, then whispered to her pendant, "He's drugging my vitamins. The nursery is a fake. There must be a real medical suite in the East Wing." She returned to bed just before Jonathan reappeared with a glass of water. "Thought you might be thirsty," he said, setting it on the nightstand. "Thank you," Miranda replied, reaching for an untampered pill. Jonathan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Nothing but the best for my girls." The sound of tires on gravel drew his attention to the window. "Ah, the Brodeurs have arrived, and it looks like Dr. Mercer is with them. Perfect timing." Miranda swallowed the legitimate vitamin and stood. "I should freshen up before meeting your friends." "Take your time," Jonathan said. Once alone, Miranda moved quickly to the window. Below, a sleek black Mercedes had pulled up beside Jonathan's car. A driver opened the rear door, and a couple emerged, the Brodeurs, exactly as she had seen in the security footage. The man was tall and distinguished with silver hair and an immaculate suit. The woman was slim, elegant, and significantly younger, dressed in a cream-colored ensemble that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Behind them, a second car arrived, a more modest sedan from which emerged a balding man in his 50s carrying a medical bag. "Dr. Mercer." Miranda touched her pendant, whispering, "They're all here. The Brodeurs and Dr. Mercer just arrived." She quickly refreshed her makeup and changed into a loose-fitting maxi dress, mentally preparing herself for the performance ahead. In the great room, Jonathan was pouring champagne when Miranda entered. "Ah, here she is," he announced. "My beautiful wife." 3 pairs of eyes turned to assess her, and her pregnant belly, with varying degrees of interest. "Miranda, meet Philippe and Elise Broder, dear friends from Paris." Jonathan gestured to the couple. "And this is Dr. Edward Mercer, who will be consulting with Dr. Winters on your care." "Enchanted," Philippe Broder said, stepping forward to take her hand. "Jonathan has told us so much about you." "All good things, I hope," Miranda replied with a forced smile. "But of course," Elise Broder interjected, her French accent pronounced. "And about the little one, we are, how do you say, eager to see a healthy delivery." "We're excited too," Miranda said. Dr. Mercer cleared his throat. "Actually, I'd like to examine you this evening, Mrs. Whitaker. Just a precautionary check after your incident yesterday." "I'm feeling much better today," Miranda assured him. "Just pre-birth jitters, I suppose." "Nevertheless," the doctor insisted. "After dinner," Jonathan said firmly, "Miranda needs to eat, and our guests have had a long journey." Dinner was an exercise in surreal restraint. The Brodeurs asked probing questions about Miranda's pregnancy, her health history, her genetic background, all while maintaining the pretense of polite conversation. Dr. Mercer contributed medical observations, clearly assessing her as a vessel rather than a person. "Miranda's family has remarkable longevity," Jonathan noted at one point. "Her maternal grandmother lived to 103. "Fascinating," Philippe remarked. "Good genes are so important." "And no history of congenital conditions?" Dr. Mercer asked. "None," Jonathan confirmed. "All genetic screening has been comprehensive and spotless." "You must be tired, Sherry," Elise said, noticing Miranda's tension. "Pregnancy is so demanding, isn't it?" "Actually, I am feeling a bit fatigued," she admitted. "Would you excuse me for a little while?" "Of course," Jonathan said. As she left, Miranda heard Philippe say quietly, "She has no idea." "None," Jonathan replied. In the bedroom, Miranda pressed her pendant close to her lips. "They're planning something tonight. Dr. Mercer is coming to examine me in half an hour. I think they're accelerating the timeline." She paced the room, trying to formulate a plan. She needed to find the real medical suite, gather concrete evidence of their intentions. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Expecting Jonathan or Dr. Mercer, she was surprised when Elise Broder entered, carrying a small gift bag. "I thought perhaps you might like some company, woman to woman." "That's kind of you," Miranda replied. "You are very brave," she said finally, "to go through this for others." "What do you mean?" "Oh, I think we understand each other, no? Your husband explained everything, how you agreed to this arrangement but prefer to, how did he put it? Maintain emotional distance from the process. Jonathan told you I agreed to this?" "But of course," Elise replied. "He said you were quite pragmatic about the whole thing, that you never wanted children but agreed to carry this one for compensation." She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "5 million is generous, but Philippe and I believe a child with such perfect genetics is worth every euro." "Jonathan discussed the financial arrangements with you?" "Naturally. Business is business after all." Elise opened the gift bag and removed a small velvet box, a token of our appreciation, for giving us what nature has cruelly denied me. "It's beautiful," Miranda managed, "but unnecessary." Elise waved a dismissive hand. "Philippe insists." "When will the transfer take place?" she asked. "Dr. Mercer believes tomorrow would be ideal." Elise replied. "He will administer something to induce labor, then perform a C-section when the time is right. You'll be sedated, of course, as requested. And afterward? You'll recover here for a day or two while we return to France with—" Elise paused. "With the baby. Philippe has arranged the private jet and all necessary documentation." "Documentation?" Miranda echoed. "Birth certificates, adoption papers, travel documents, all showing Philippe and me as the legal parents. Your husband has impressive connections. The paperwork is flawless." A soft knock at the door interrupted them. Dr. Mercer entered, medical bag in hand. "Mrs. Whitaker, time for your examination," he announced. "Of course," Elise stood, patting Miranda's hand. "Tomorrow is a big day for all of us." After she left, Dr. Mercer's professional demeanor dropped entirely. "Strip to your underwear and lie on the bed," he ordered. "I need to assess your readiness for tomorrow's procedure." "Tomorrow?" Miranda asked, not moving. "Isn't that premature? I'm only 30 weeks along." "30 weeks is viable," Mercer replied dismissively. "And your husband is paying me enough to ensure everything goes smoothly." He removed a syringe from his bag. "This will help relax you for the examination." Miranda backed away. "I don't need medication for a simple examination." "It wasn't a request, Mrs. Whitaker." The threat hung in the air between them. Miranda calculated her options. If she refused, Jonathan would be summoned, and the charade would end. If she submitted, she might be drugged into compliance. "What exactly will you be doing in this examination?" "Checking cervical dilation, fetal position, and administering the first preparation dose for tomorrow's procedure." Mercer advanced with the syringe. "Now, I won't ask again. I'd like Jonathan to be present for this. Your husband specifically requested privacy for these examinations. He mentioned you might be difficult. That's why he asked me to administer a mild sedative first." "I need to use the bathroom first," Miranda said. "Make it quick," Mercer growled. Inside the bathroom, Miranda locked the door and whispered urgently to her pendant. "They're planning to induce labor tomorrow. Mercer is trying to drug me now. The Brodeurs confirmed they're buying the baby. I need extraction. Repeat, I need immediate extraction." She flushed the toilet for cover, then turned on the sink as she considered her options. The bathroom window was small but might be large enough for her to squeeze through. If she could escape the house, perhaps she could hide on the property until Morales and her team arrived. A pounding on the door interrupted her planning. "Mrs. Whitaker, that's enough time." "Just a moment," she called back, climbing onto the counter to examine the window. It was sealed shut, part of the climate control system Jonathan had installed. No easy escape there. The pounding grew more insistent. "Open this door immediately." Miranda's time had run out. She needed to stall until help arrived. Taking a deep breath, she unlocked the door. Dr. Mercer stood there, Jonathan now beside him, both men wearing expressions of cold determination. "What's going on?" Miranda asked, forcing confusion into her voice. "Is everything all right?" "Dr. Mercer tells me you're being uncooperative," Jonathan said quietly. "I just wanted you to be present for the examination," she explained. "I see. Well, I'm here now. Shall we proceed?" Miranda nodded reluctantly, moving back into the bedroom. As she passed Jonathan, he grabbed her arm, his fingers digging painfully into her flesh. "What did you say to Elise?" he hissed. "Nothing," Miranda replied. "She gave me a bracelet. We chatted about the pregnancy." "Why?" "She seemed to think you were fully aware of our arrangement," Jonathan said, studying her face intently. "That you'd agreed to everything." Miranda realized her mistake immediately. By asking Elise about the transfer details, she'd revealed her ignorance of the plan, something Jonathan had apparently told the Brodeurs she was fully aware of. I was just playing along," she improvised. "She seemed so eager to discuss it, and I didn't want to be rude." Jonathan's grip tightened. "You're lying. You know something." His eyes dropped to her neck, narrowing as they focused on her pendant. "What is this? Where did you get this?" he demanded. "It was a gift from Kate," Miranda lied. You haven't spoken to your sister in days. He closed his fist around the pendant, then turned to Mercer. Check her for other devices. Now. Mercer grabbed Miranda's arms while Jonathan searched her, patting down her clothing and checking her hair. Who are you working with? He demanded. I don't know what you're talking about, Miranda insisted. It doesn't matter. We're accelerating the timeline. Mercer, administer the sedative now. I'll inform the Broders we're proceeding immediately. Jonathan, please, Miranda begged. Think about what you're doing. This is our baby, your daughter. This is a business transaction, one that will net us $5 million. You can't do this. You can't just sell our child like she's property. Actually, I can. The paperwork is flawless, the buyers are waiting, and you have absolutely no proof of anything illegal. Jonathan nodded to Mercer. Do it. As Mercer approached with the syringe, Miranda felt a surge of desperate maternal rage. With strength she didn't know she possessed, she shoved the doctor hard, sending him stumbling backward into Jonathan. The syringe clattered to the floor. Miranda bolted for the door, but Jonathan recovered quickly, grabbing her hair and yanking her back with brutal force. She cried out in pain as he twisted her arm behind her back. You never could see the bigger picture, he hissed in her ear. This child is an asset, the perfect product. Do you know how rare it is to find genetic matches like ours? How valuable is a designer baby to the right buyer? She's a human being, Miranda gasped. She's whatever I say she is, Jonathan snarled, and you've outlived your usefulness as an incubator. Mercer had retrieved the syringe and now approached again, a sadistic gleam in his eyes. Hold her still. Miranda struggled violently, kicking and twisting despite the pain in her arm and the awkwardness of her pregnant body. Help, she screamed. No one can hear you. The Brodeurs know what's happening, and there's no one else for miles. As Mercer reached for her arm with the syringe, a deafening crash echoed through the house. The sound of splintering wood was followed by shouts of, "Police, freeze!" Jonathan's grip loosened in shock, and Miranda wrenched herself free, scrambling away from both men. In here, she screamed. Help me! The bedroom door burst open. Detective Morales stood in the doorway, gun drawn, flanked by uniformed officers. Jonathan Whitaker, Dr. Edward Mercer, she announced. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit human trafficking, attempted sale of a minor, and assault. As officers moved to handcuff the stunned men, Miranda collapsed into a chair, trembling with relief and delayed shock. The Brodeurs, she gasped. They're here too. They're part of this. Already in custody, Morales assured her. We moved as soon as your signal went dead. EMTs are on their way to check you and the baby. Miranda nodded weakly, watching as Jonathan was led away in handcuffs, his face a mask of cold fury. Their eyes met as he passed, and she saw nothing but calculating hatred in his gaze. As paramedics examined her, Miranda heard Detective Morales informing Jonathan of his rights. The detective's voice was clear and professional, but her eyes, when they met Miranda's, held something else, the fierce satisfaction of justice served. The house is secure, an officer reported. We've documented the medical suite in the East Wing and confiscated all computers and documents. Good work, Morales replied. Outside, Miranda could hear the Brodeurs protesting their arrest in rapid French, their indignation at being treated like common criminals. Is the baby okay? She asked the paramedic examining her. Heart rate is strong and regular, the young woman assured her. But we'd like to transport you to the hospital just to be safe. Miranda nodded, suddenly exhausted. You did everything right, the detective said. Your courage saved your daughter. What happens now? Miranda asked. Now you focus on your health and your baby, Morales replied firmly. We'll handle the rest. We have more than enough evidence to put all four of them away for a very long time. As the ambulance doors closed, Miranda caught a final glimpse of Jonathan being placed in a police cruiser, his perfect facade finally shattered. But as the adrenaline ebbed, new fears emerged. She was 7 months pregnant, alone, with no home to return to and a legal battle ahead. How would she rebuild her life from the ashes of this betrayal? The answer came in the form of her sister Kate, who was waiting at the hospital when Miranda arrived, her face tight with worry. I came as soon as Detective Morales called, Kate explained. You're coming home with me to Portland until the baby comes. No arguments. 3 weeks later, Miranda sat beside her attorney, Ellen Reeves, in a wood-paneled courtroom that smelled faintly of lemon polish and anxiety. At 33 weeks pregnant, her back ached relentlessly against the hard bench, but she sat straight, determined to project strength. Across the aisle, Jonathan occupied the defendant's table with his attorney, Philip Garrett. Gone were the designer suits and the confident smile. In their place was a prison-issued jumpsuit and a cold, calculating stare that occasionally fixed on Miranda's swollen belly with a proprietary gleam that made her skin crawl. The preliminary hearings had already established that Jonathan would remain in custody until trial, a small victory won by the overwhelming evidence gathered at the lake house and the flight risk he presented with his international connections. Today's hearing would determine temporary custody arrangements for the baby, due to arrive in less than 2 months. All rise, the bailiff announced. The Honorable Judge Claudia Ramirez presiding. Judge Ramirez, a stern-faced woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun, took her seat and surveyed the courtroom. "Be seated," she instructed. "We're here today on case number 287,453, Whitaker v. Whitaker, to determine temporary custody arrangements for the unborn child." Ellen Reeves rose first, her navy suit impeccable, her presence commanding despite her petite stature. At 45, she had built a reputation as a formidable advocate for women in crisis, and she had taken Miranda's case pro bono after hearing the details. "Your Honor," Ellen began, "this case presents one of the most egregious examples of spousal betrayal and child endangerment I've encountered in 15 years of family law practice. My client, Miranda Whitaker, is 33 weeks pregnant with a daughter that her estranged husband, Jonathan Whitaker, attempted to sell to wealthy foreign buyers for $5 million. The evidence is overwhelming and has already been deemed sufficient to hold Mr. Whitaker on criminal charges," Ellen continued. "What we seek today is simple: full temporary custody for Mrs. Whitaker, with no visitation rights for Mr. Whitaker, pending the outcome of his criminal trial. We also request immediate unfreezing of marital assets to provide for Mrs. Whitaker's medical care and living expenses during this critical time." When Ellen finished, Philip Garrett rose, his expensive suit and silver hair embodying the establishment power that Jonathan had once wielded so effectively. "Your Honor," he began smoothly, "while we acknowledge that Mr. Whitaker is facing serious criminal charges, those proceedings are separate from today's matter. What we're discussing is the welfare of an unborn child, and Mr. Whitaker, as the biological father, has inherent rights that should not be summarily dismissed based on allegations that have yet to be proven at trial. Furthermore," Garrett continued, "Mrs. Whitaker has demonstrated erratic behavior throughout this pregnancy, including a disappearing act that caused my client great distress. Her claims about Mr. Whitaker's intentions have been exaggerated and misconstrued, possibly due to prenatal anxiety or hormonal influences." "Objection," Ellen interjected. "Counsel is attempting to pathologize my client's justified fear for her safety and that of her unborn child." "Sustained," Judge Ramirez ruled. "Mr. Garrett, stick to legally relevant arguments." Garrett nodded, unruffled. "My point, Your Honor, is that Mr. Whitaker has significant concerns about Mrs. Whitaker's stability and her ability to make sound decisions for their child. He requests joint legal custody pending the resolution of criminal proceedings, with provisions for supervised visitation after the birth." Judge Ramirez's expression remained neutral. "Mrs. Whitaker, please approach the stand. I'd like to hear directly from you." Miranda moved carefully to the witness stand, hyper-aware of Jonathan's eyes following her every movement. After being sworn in, she settled awkwardly, her hand resting protectively on her belly. "Mrs. Whitaker," Judge Ramirez began, "please tell the court, in your own words, why you believe your husband poses a danger to your unborn child." "Your Honor, I discovered evidence that Jonathan had arranged to sell our daughter to Philippe and Elise Brodeur, a wealthy French couple unable to have children of their own. He created elaborate documentation, set up a medical suite at our lake house, and hired Dr. Mercer to perform a premature delivery." "And how did you discover this?" "Initially through conversations I overheard, then through documents I found in his office. When I confronted him, he denied everything and tried to convince me I was being paranoid. Later, with help from a women's shelter and Detective Morales, I accessed security footage of the lake house showing the medical suite and Jonathan discussing the transfer with the Brodeurs." "And at the lake house itself, what transpired?" Miranda recounted the horrifying events, the fake nursery, the drugged vitamins, Elise Brodeur's revelations, and finally, Jonathan and Dr. Mercer attempting to forcibly sedate her before the police arrived. "Thank you, Mrs. Whitaker," the judge said. "Mr. Garrett, your cross-examination." Philip Garrett approached with the practiced smile of a shark scenting blood. "Mrs. Whitaker, isn't it true that you've been treated for anxiety in the past?" "Objection," Ellen called. "Irrelevant and prejudicial. I'm establishing the witness's history of emotional instability," Garrett countered. "I'll allow it, but tread carefully, counselor," Judge Ramirez warned. Miranda straightened. "I saw a therapist for situational anxiety after my father's death 5 years ago. It was brief and resolved through therapy. And during this pregnancy, you've experienced mood swings, paranoia, and irrational fears, isn't that correct?" "I've experienced normal pregnancy emotions," Miranda replied evenly. My fear of Jonathan's intentions wasn't irrational, it was based on concrete evidence that has since been validated by police investigation. Mrs. Whitaker, prior to your marriage, you worked at Child First, an organization that facilitates private adoptions. Isn't it possible you misinterpreted legitimate adoption discussions as something sinister? Child First advocates for vulnerable children and families. We never brokered adoptions for profit. What Jonathan arranged was illegal baby selling, not adoption. The distinction is clear and documented in the evidence. Let's discuss the prenuptial agreement you signed. Garrett continued smoothly. It contained clauses regarding custody arrangements in case of divorce, did it not? It did, Miranda acknowledged. Standard clauses about shared custody. And the amendment you refused to sign, the one you claim raised suspicions, wasn't it simply an update to those custody provisions in light of your pregnancy? No, Miranda said firmly. It contained language about transferring parental rights to third parties and asset valuation. When I had it reviewed by an independent attorney, she identified it as laying groundwork for transferring our baby to another family. You mean when you had it reviewed by Rebecca Chen, a known advocate with a history of making unfounded allegations against wealthy men in divorce proceedings? Objection, Ellen stood. Counsel is attacking a non-witness who simply provided legal advice to my client. Sustained, Judge Ramirez ruled. Mr. Garrett, confine your questions to relevant matters. Garrett nodded. Mrs. Whitaker, isn't it true that you and your husband had been discussing surrogacy arrangements before you unexpectedly became pregnant? No, that's completely false. We were on a waiting list for IVF due to my endometriosis. Yet you have no documentation of these IVF appointments, Garrett noted. Convenient. Because we were still on the waiting list, Miranda explained. I put it to you, Mrs. Whitaker, that you and your husband had in fact agreed to serve as surrogate parents for the Broders, with generous compensation. When the time came to fulfill that agreement, you had second thoughts and fabricated this elaborate story of baby selling. That's absurd and completely untrue. There is extensive evidence. Evidence that could be interpreted multiple ways. Garrett interrupted smoothly. Your Honor, we have documentation showing that Mrs. Whitaker was fully aware of arrangements with the Broders. He produced a folder and approached the bench, handing copies to the judge and to Ellen. This is the first we're seeing of this, Ellen objected. Judge Ramirez reviewed the documents with a frown. Mrs. Whitaker, are you familiar with these consent forms? Ellen passed the papers to Miranda, whose blood ran cold as she recognized what they were. These are forgeries, she said immediately. I never signed anything like this. That's not my signature. Your Honor, these documents were not part of the evidence disclosed to us, Ellen protested. And they contradict the recorded statements of all parties involved, including the Broders themselves, who clearly believed Mrs. Whitaker was unaware of the arrangement. Judge Ramirez studied the signatures carefully. I'm inclined to have these examined by a handwriting expert before giving them any weight. Mr. Garrett, why weren't these documents provided during discovery? They were recently located in Mr. Whitaker's home office. Miranda leaned forward. Your Honor, I can prove these are forgeries right now. Look at the date on these documents, February 10th. According to these papers, I supposedly agreed to surrogacy during my first trimester. But Jonathan and I didn't even know I was pregnant until late January, and my first prenatal appointment confirming the pregnancy wasn't until February 15th. Judge Ramirez examined the dates. Counsel, this discrepancy is troubling. Garrett faltered for the first time. Perhaps there's a typographical error in the date. Or perhaps, Ellen interjected, rising, this is a desperate attempt to fabricate evidence. Your Honor, we request that these documents be submitted for forensic analysis and that Mr. Whitaker be investigated for attempted perjury. So ordered, Judge Ramirez declared. Mr. Garrett, your continued cross-examination. Garrett, visibly rattled, attempted a few more questions about Miranda's emotional state and financial motivations, but his earlier confidence had evaporated. When he finally concluded, Judge Ramirez called a 15-minute recess. In the hallway outside, Ellen squeezed Miranda's arm encouragingly. You did beautifully. Those forged documents were a desperate move, and they backfired spectacularly. I can't believe he thought that would work, Miranda said, shaking her head. Desperation makes people sloppy, Ellen observed, and Jonathan is desperate. The criminal case against him is solid, but losing parental rights would be another significant blow to his ego and to any future attempts to monetize his connection to the child. Monetize? Miranda echoed. Think about it, Ellen explained. Even if he goes to prison, as long as he retains some parental rights, he could potentially profit from your daughter in the future, through book deals, interviews, maybe even using her as leverage for a reduced sentence. Miranda felt ill at the thought. We can't let that happen. We won't, Ellen assured her. When court resumed, Jonathan was called to testify. He approached the stand with the confident stride that had once charmed Miranda. "Mr. Whitaker," Philip Garrett began, "please explain to the court the nature of your arrangement with the Brodeurs." "It was a private surrogacy agreement," Jonathan replied, his voice steady. "Miranda and I had discussed the possibility of helping couples who couldn't conceive naturally. When we surprisingly became pregnant ourselves, the opportunity arose to help the Brodeurs, who had been trying to have a child for years." "And Mrs. Whitaker was aware of this arrangement?" "Completely aware," Jonathan affirmed. "She signed the consent forms you presented earlier. However, as her pregnancy progressed, she became increasingly attached to the baby. I understood her emotional struggle and suggested she might need more time to prepare for the separation." "What about the medical suite at the lake house?" "A precaution," Jonathan explained. "Miranda's pregnancy was initially classified as high risk due to her endometriosis. I wanted to ensure she had access to the best care in a calm, private environment. Dr. Mercer was brought in as a specialist in maternal-fetal medicine." "And the $5 million mentioned in documents seized by police?" "A donation to the Brodeurs Fertility Foundation," Jonathan claimed. "Part of our agreement was that they would establish a nonprofit to help other couples struggling with fertility issues. The money was never a payment for the baby. That would be illegal and morally reprehensible." When Ellen rose for cross-examination, her expression was one of cool determination. "Mr. Whitaker, let's discuss the recorded conversation between you and Dr. Mercer on the night of your arrest, shall we?" Jonathan's smile never faltered. "Of course." Ellen nodded to the bailiff, who set up an audio player. "This was recorded by the police body cameras as you were being placed in custody." The courtroom fell silent as Jonathan's voice filled the room. "You idiots have no idea what you've done. Do you know how much planning went into this? How rare it is to find buyers willing to pay $5 million for a designer baby?" Dr. Mercer's reply followed. "Shut up, Whitaker. They're recording everything." Jonathan's voice again. "It doesn't matter. The documentation is clean. It's her word against mine, and I've already established her as unstable." The recording ended, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Jonathan's facade cracked slightly, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "Would you care to explain that conversation, Mr. Whitaker?" Ellen asked mildly. "It's been taken out of context," Jonathan replied. "Really?" Ellen consulted her notes. "Because it sounds remarkably consistent with statements made by the Brodeurs, who have agreed to testify against you in exchange for leniency. They state explicitly that they were purchasing your biological child, not entering into a legitimate surrogacy arrangement. The Brodeurs misunderstood the nature of our agreement." "All four of you misunderstood? How unfortunate." Ellen's tone was pure ice. "Let's talk about the medical suite at the lake house. If it was simply for Miranda's safety, why did police find surgical equipment specifically designed for rapid C-section and infant transfer? Why were there documents labeled extraction protocol and transfer timeline? Standard medical terminology," Jonathan insisted. Ellen approached the witness stand, her expression hardening. "Mr. Whitaker, at the moment of your arrest, you and Dr. Mercer were attempting to forcibly sedate your pregnant wife after she discovered your plan. Detective Morales and her team have provided sworn testimony to this effect. How do you explain that?" Miranda was hysterical. She needed to be calmed for her own safety and the baby's. Hysterical because she had just learned her husband planned to steal her child and fake its death? "Objection," Garrett called. "Counsel is badgering the witness." "Withdrawn," Ellen said smoothly. "Mr. Whitaker, let's discuss your prenuptial amendment, the one you tried to pressure Miranda into signing. It contained language about biological assets and transfer of parental interests. How do you reconcile that with your claim of a legitimate surrogacy arrangement?" "Standard legal protection," Jonathan replied, "to ensure the Brodeurs' interests were protected." "Interesting," Ellen noted, "because prenuptial agreements typically protect the interests of the signing parties, not third parties who aren't signatories to the document." "Mr. Whitaker, what is Elite Genetic Solutions?" "I'm not familiar with that name." Ellen approached with another document. "This is a contract found in your locked filing cabinet between you and Elite Genetic Solutions for the procurement and placement of premium genetic assets. Your signature appears on page 3. She handed copies to the judge and to Garrett, who examined it with barely concealed dismay. "This is the first I'm seeing of this," Garrett muttered, but Judge Ramirez silenced him with a look. "Mr. Whitaker?" she prompted. Jonathan's confident facade had completely crumbled. "I don't recall this specific document. My business interests are diverse." Elite Genetic Solutions, Ellen continued relentlessly, is currently under federal investigation for illegal human trafficking, specifically arranging the sale of infants and young children to wealthy clients worldwide. They've facilitated at least 7 other cases similar to what you attempted with the Brodeurs. "Your Honor," Ellen continued, We've submitted evidence linking Mr. Whitaker to this organization dating back 3 years, well before Mrs. Whitaker's pregnancy. This was never about surrogacy. This was a calculated business operation that began the moment he learned his wife was expecting. Mr. Whitaker, Judge Ramirez said, her voice stern, do you wish to revise any of your previous testimony in light of this evidence? On the advice of counsel, I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Judge Ramirez banged her gavel for order. So noted, she said crisply. You may step down, Mr. Whitaker. Following closing arguments, Judge Ramirez called a 1-hour recess to review the evidence before issuing her ruling. Miranda waited in a small conference room with Ellen, too anxious to eat the sandwich her attorney had provided. What if he still gets visitation? She worried, pacing despite her unwieldy belly. The evidence is overwhelming, Ellen assured her. When court reconvened, Judge Ramirez's expression was grave as she delivered her ruling. Having reviewed the evidence presented today, I find compelling proof that Mr. Whitaker engaged in a conspiracy to illegally transfer custody of his unborn child to the Brodeurs in exchange for financial compensation. His actions demonstrated a callous disregard for both the child's welfare and Mrs. Whitaker's physical and emotional well-being. Mr. Whitaker, your attempt to portray these arrangements as legitimate surrogacy is contradicted by substantial evidence, including your own recorded statements. Your presentation of apparently forged consent documents to this court is especially troubling and will be referred to the district attorney for possible additional charges. Therefore, I am granting full temporary legal and physical custody of the unborn child to Miranda Whitaker, with no visitation rights for Jonathan Whitaker pending the outcome of criminal proceedings. Further, I am issuing a permanent restraining order prohibiting Mr. Whitaker from approaching within 500 feet of Mrs. Whitaker or the child once born. Additionally, Judge Ramirez continued, I am ordering the immediate unfreezing of marital assets sufficient to cover Mrs. Plest Whitaker's medical expenses, housing, and basic needs for the next 6 months. Mrs. Whitaker's attorney will submit a detailed budget for my approval within 48 hours. Mr. Whitaker, while your criminal case will determine your ultimate fate regarding prison time, let me be abundantly clear. Based on the evidence presented today, I intend to recommend termination of your parental rights permanently once criminal proceedings are complete. This court will not allow a child to remain legally connected to someone who viewed them as a commodity to be sold. With a final bang of her gavel, it was over. Jonathan was led away by court officers, his expression thunderous. As he passed Miranda, he leaned slightly toward her, his voice pitched for her ears alone. This isn't over, he hissed. That baby is still half mine. No, she replied quietly. You've lost, Jonathan. You'll never get near her. Outside the courtroom, reporters had gathered, alerted to the sensational case. Ellen fielded their questions efficiently while guiding Miranda toward a side exit. Mrs. Whitaker is grateful for the court's decision and looks forward to the safe arrival of her daughter in the coming weeks, she told the press. As they reached Ellen's car, Miranda paused, turning to her attorney with tears in her eyes. Thank you for believing in me, for fighting for us. Ellen squeezed her hand. You did the hard part. You recognized the danger and got yourself out. I almost didn't, Miranda admitted, if I hadn't found those documents. But you did, Ellen reminded her. As they drove away from the courthouse, Miranda gazed out at the city streets, feeling as though she were seeing everything with new eyes. The nightmare wasn't completely over. Jonathan's criminal trial still loomed, and she would likely have to testify again. But the immediate danger had passed. Her daughter was safe. Her hand rested on her belly, feeling the reassuring movements of the child within. We're going to be okay, she whispered. He can't hurt us anymore. 6 weeks later, Miranda sat in a rocking chair beside a window overlooking Portland's lush green landscape, her newborn daughter cradled against her chest. Lily Catherine Voss, named for her grandmother and her aunt, deliberately excluding the Whitaker name, slept peacefully, unaware of the storm surrounding her birth or the ongoing legal battles being waged in her name. The delivery had been uncomplicated, a small mercy after months of trauma. Kate had been by Miranda's side throughout, fierce and protective, making sure hospital security was aware of the situation and that no unauthorized could access the maternity ward. Detective Morales had called with updates regularly. Jonathan's criminal trial was scheduled for the following month, with the prosecutor confident of a conviction based on the mountain of evidence. Dr. Mercer was cooperating as well, revealing details of at least 5 other baby-selling schemes he had facilitated. A soft knock at the door interrupted Miranda's thoughts. Kate entered, carrying 2 mugs of tea. "How's my perfect niece?" she asked. "Perfect," Miranda confirmed with a tired smile. The case had exploded in the media after Jonathan's arrest. with headlines ranging from the factual tech CEO arrested in baby selling scheme to the sensational billionaire's baby auction exposed. Miranda had declined all interview requests, focusing instead on her pregnancy and preparation for Lily's arrival. But the story had taken on a life of its own. Ellen called, Kate said. The federal investigation into elite genetic solutions is expanding. They've identified clients in 3 countries and are following a money trail that apparently leads to some very powerful people. Miranda nodded, unsurprised. Jonathan always moved in exclusive circles. I'm just grateful we stopped him before. She couldn't finish the sentence, her arms tightening instinctively around Lily. Before he could hurt Lily, Kate completed gently. The doorbell rang, and Kate went to answer it. She returned moments later with Ellen Reeves and a woman Miranda didn't recognize, tall and elegantly dressed, with silver streaks, dark hair, and keen eyes. Miranda, this is Congresswoman Diane Livingston, Ellen introduced. She's been following your case and wanted to meet with you. Miranda shifted Lily to her shoulder, standing to greet the visitor. Congresswoman, this is unexpected. Please call me Diane, the woman replied, her handshake firm. I apologize for the intrusion during such a precious time, but what happened to you and your daughter has significant implications for legislation I'm working on. I chair the House Subcommittee on Human Trafficking, Diane explained. Your case has exposed a gap in our current laws regarding infant trafficking disguised as private adoption or surrogacy. A gap my ex-husband exploited, Miranda noted. Exactly. Diane leaned forward, her expression earnest. I'm drafting legislation to strengthen protections for birth mothers and infants, specifically targeting these high-end, designer baby schemes that prey on vulnerable women or, in your case, manipulate pregnancies for profit. The Lily Whitaker Act, Ellen added. If passed, it would establish new federal oversights for private adoptions and surrogacy arrangements, create a specialized task force to investigate suspected trafficking operations, and increase penalties for those convicted. With your permission, Diane confirmed, your story has captured public attention in a way that creates a rare window for meaningful legislative action. People are outraged, and rightfully so. What would this involve for us? Miranda asked cautiously. Initially, your testimony before the subcommittee, Diane explained. Your first-hand account would be powerful in educating my colleagues about these schemes and their impact. Beyond that, as much or as little involvement as you're comfortable with. I need time to think about it, she said finally. Lily is only 2 weeks old and I'm still processing everything that happened. Of course, Diane assured her. The subcommittee hearings won't begin for at least 3 months. After the Congresswoman left, Ellen remained, her expression serious. There's another matter we need to discuss, she said. Jonathan's attorney has filed a motion challenging the custody ruling. Miranda's heart sank. On what grounds? They're claiming new information has come to light, Ellen explained, her disgust evident. Specifically, they're alleging that you were aware of and initially consented to the arrangement with the Brodeurs, then changed your mind and fabricated the trafficking claims to gain sole custody. That's absurd, Kate interjected. The recordings, the documents. I know, Ellen agreed. It's a desperate ploy. But with Jonathan's resources, he can keep filing motions and dragging this out. His goal is likely to wear you down or force a compromise. What do? We fight, Ellen said simply. Every motion, every allegation. And meanwhile, we compile our own evidence for a permanent termination of his parental rights. What kind of evidence? Communications with elite genetic solutions predating your pregnancy would be ideal, Ellen mused. Proof that he was involved in this scheme before Lily was even conceived would demolish his consensual surrogacy claim. Miranda frowned, thinking, his laptop was seized during the arrest, right? And his phones? Yes, but his attorneys have limited what can be searched based on the scope of the warrant. What about his cloud storage? Miranda asked suddenly. Jonathan was obsessive about backups. He maintained multiple cloud accounts for different purposes: business, personal, investments. Do you have access to any of them? Not directly, Miranda admitted, but I might know how to find the access information. Jonathan kept an encrypted password manager on his devices, but he also maintained a physical backup, a notebook hidden in our home. He showed it to me once, in case anything happened to him. Would it still be there? Kate asked doubtfully. Maybe not, Miranda reasoned. He was arrested at the lake house. The Austin home was locked up afterward, with police sealing certain areas for evidence collection. If the notebook was well hidden, Ellen was already reaching for her phone. I'll contact Detective Morales. If we can locate this notebook through proper legal channels, any evidence it leads to would be admissible. 3 days later, Miranda received a video call from Detective Morales, her expression triumphant. We found it, she announced without preamble, exactly where you described, inside the false bottom of the desk drawer in his home office. The notebook contained access credentials for 5 different cloud storage accounts. And, Miranda prompted, hardly daring to hope, a gold mine, Morales confirmed. We've only scratched the surface, but there are communications with Elite Genetic Solutions dating back 2 years, well before your pregnancy. It appears Jonathan was a facilitator for them, identifying potential premium donors among his social circle. Donors? Miranda echoed, confused. Women with specific genetic traits, educational backgrounds, physical characteristics, Morales explained. He would cultivate relationships with them, assess their suitability, then pass the information to EGS for potential matching with buyers. Are you saying he married me as part of this scheme? That I was selected? We found your profile in his files, created shortly after you met. It details your family health history, educational achievements, physical attributes, all consistent with what EGS considered premium genetic material. Miranda felt dizzy, the room seeming to tilt around her. Their entire relationship had been a calculation, a business transaction from the very beginning. There's more, Morales continued gently. Documents suggest Jonathan received a finder's fee for each successful placement. When you unexpectedly became pregnant, it appears he saw an opportunity to cut out the middleman and arrange a direct sale to the brodeurs. Finder's fee, Miranda repeated numbly. He was trafficking women and children for profit, and he's going to pay for it, Morales assured her. After the call ended, Miranda sat in stunned silence, Lily sleeping peacefully in her bassinet nearby. Kate found her there an hour later, still processing the revelation. He never loved me, Miranda said when Kate entered. Kate knelt beside her chair, taking her hands. That's on him, not you. You loved genuinely. You trusted genuinely. His monstrosity doesn't diminish your capacity for real connection. How do I tell her this someday? That her father saw her as nothing but a product, that he married me as part of a trafficking operation. You tell her the truth when she's old enough, Kate said firmly. That she was born from your love, even if his was a lie. That you fought for her with everything you had. That sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into. And meanwhile, we make sure Jonathan never gets within 1,000 miles of either of you, Kate declared. Ellen called while you were on with Morales. She's filing for emergency permanent termination of Jonathan's parental rights based on the new evidence. 2 weeks later, Miranda sat in a different courtroom, this time in Portland where she had established temporary residence with Kate. Lily, now a month old, remained at home with a trusted sitter. Judge Ramirez had transferred jurisdiction to Oregon, acknowledging Miranda's need to relocate for safety and support. The new judge, Howard Perlman, had reviewed the extensive case files and now presided over what would hopefully be the final custody determination. Jonathan appeared via video link from detention, his attorney beside him in a small conference room. His expression remained impassive as the prosecutor outlined the new evidence discovered in his cloud accounts. Your Honor, the prosecutor concluded, the state has provided overwhelming evidence that Mr. Whitaker's relationship with Mrs. Whitaker was predicated on his involvement with Elite Genetic Solutions. He identified her as a potential premium genetic donor, cultivated a relationship for the specific purpose of eventually profiting from her reproductive capabilities, and attempted to sell their child once she became pregnant. His parental rights should be permanently terminated on grounds of abandonment, endangerment, and criminal activity directly related to the child. Jonathan's attorney offered a tepid defense, arguing that despite the alleged criminal activity, biological parenthood created inherent rights that should not be severed without consideration of the child's long-term interests. Judge Perlman was having none of it. Mr. Whitaker, he addressed the video screen directly. The evidence before me indicates that you viewed your child not as a human being deserving of love and protection, but as a product to be sold for profit. You endangered both the child and her mother through your actions. Do you wish to address these findings before I rule? Jonathan's mask of indifference finally cracked. That child represents years of planning and millions in potential revenue, he said coldly. She carries my genetic material. By any reasonable definition, I have a right to some benefit from my investment. Mr. Whitaker, you have just confirmed every conclusion in the state's petition, he said. Your reference to your daughter as an investment rather than a human being deserving of care reveals your fundamental unfitness as a parent. Without further deliberation, the judge granted the petition to permanently terminate Jonathan's parental rights. Furthermore, he added, I am ordering that the child's birth certificate be amended to remove Mr. Whitaker's name entirely. He has forfeited any right to be legally recognized as this child's father. Miranda closed her eyes, tears of relief streaming down her face. It was over, truly over. Lily was hers alone, legally and permanently protected from the man who had seen her only as a commodity. Outside the courthouse, Ellen embraced her. Congratulations. Lily is free of him forever. What happens now? Miranda asked. With his criminal case, the trial is scheduled for next month. But with this new evidence, his attorneys are already discussing a plea deal, Ellen explained. Either way, he's looking at a minimum of 15 years, possibly more if the federal charges stick. Good. That gives Lily and me time to build a life he can't touch. Speaking of building a life, Ellen said, have you given any more thought to Congresswoman Livingston's proposal? The subcommittee hearings begin in 6 weeks. Miranda hesitated. The thought of testifying publicly still unnerved her. But the weeks since Lily's birth had brought clarity. The horror she had experienced wasn't unique. Other women had been targeted. Other babies had been trafficked. Without exposure and legislative action, the cycle would continue. I'll do it, she decided. For Lily, and for all the other women and children caught in these schemes. You're going to make a difference, Miranda. Your story has already begun to change how these cases are handled. The following month, as Jonathan's criminal proceedings began in Texas, Miranda established a new home in Portland, a modest house with a garden where Lily could play someday. Using a portion of the unfrozen marital assets awarded by the court, she also founded the Lily Foundation, dedicated to supporting pregnant women in crisis and combating reproductive exploitation. When Lily was 12 weeks old, Miranda traveled to Washington, D.C. to testify before the House Subcommittee on Human Trafficking. With her sister beside her and Lily in her arms, she faced a panel of legislators and told her story. The calculated deception, the discovery of Jonathan's plan, the harrowing escape, and the justice that followed. Elite Genetic Solutions and operations like it prey on two vulnerabilities, she explained to the rapt committee. The desperation of wealthy couples unable to have children, and the trust women place in partners they believe love them. They create a marketplace where babies are commodities and women are vessels, all while maintaining a veneer of legitimacy through carefully crafted legal documents. Congresswoman Livingston leaned forward. In your experience, Mrs. Voss, what red flags might have alerted you earlier to your ex-husband's intentions? The clinical language he used when discussing our baby, terms like asset and investment, his obsessive documentation of the pregnancy, the push to isolate me from friends and family, the sudden interest in my genetic background and family health history. But the most insidious aspect of these schemes is that they're perpetrated by people the victims trust completely. Jonathan didn't present as a trafficker or criminal. He presented as a loving husband excited about our child. The deception was absolute. Her testimony made headlines nationwide, putting a human face on a criminal enterprise that had operated in shadows. When the Lily Whitaker Act passed 6 months later with bipartisan support, Miranda stood behind Congresswoman Livingston at the press conference, her daughter now an active, curious 8-month-old perched on her hip. This legislation creates new protections for vulnerable women and children, Livingston announced to the assembled press. It establishes federal oversight of private adoption and surrogacy arrangements, criminalizes designer baby trafficking schemes, and provides resources for victims. None of this would have been possible without the courage of Miranda Voss and her daughter Lily, who turned unimaginable trauma into powerful advocacy. Later that evening, as she prepared Lily for bed in their hotel suite, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Jonathan Whitaker had been sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for his role in the Elite Genetic Solutions trafficking ring. No possibility of parole for at least 18 years. Miranda set down the phone, a complex wave of emotions washing over her. Not joy, exactly, but vindication, justice. You're safe, she whispered to her daughter, who gazed back with curious eyes that held no trace of the man who had tried to sell her. And you're free to become whoever you want to be, without his shadow hanging over you. As Lily drifted to sleep, Miranda allowed herself to contemplate the future for the first time without fear clouding the horizon. She would rebuild her career, perhaps returning to child advocacy work with the perspective only personal experience could provide. The Lily Foundation would grow, helping other women escape situations like hers. And someday, when Lily was old enough, Miranda would tell her the full story, not to burden her, but to show her the strength that had protected her from the very beginning. We're going to be okay, Miranda murmured, brushing a kiss against Lily's forehead. Better than okay. We're going to thrive.